On January 16, 2026, the RIAA officially named NBA YoungBoy the most certified rapper in history, bringing his total to 126 plaques. That single milestone pushed him ahead of legends like Drake, Jay-Z, and Eminem. Now, 4 months after that record-breaking moment, Drake is preparing to release his new album, Iceman, on May 15, 2026. This marks his first solo effort since the fallout of the Kendrick Lamar situation. But there is a deeper story here that isn't getting much attention. It's the story of how Drake and NBA YoungBoy have spent 3 years circling one another without ever coming to blows. It involves a FaceTime call that shut down a potential collaboration before it could even start, a quiet alliance with Lil Durk that turned two of the industry's biggest stars into rivals, and a phone call from Jay Prince intended to settle the tension once and for all. With the release of Iceman now less than a month away, the entire rap world is watching closely to see what happens next. And that's the big question. Will Drake finally say the name? By the end of this video, you'll realize this isn't just a simple case of bad blood between two artists. This is about loyalty and picking sides in a conflict that traces back to a fatal night outside an Atlanta hookah lounge. It's a look at what happens when the most certified rapper in history and the most streamed rapper in history refuse to even be in the same room. On the surface, it's easy to wonder why they even have an issue considering they've never actually traded shots on a record. There isn't a specific diss track or a single viral argument to point to. To a casual fan, it doesn't seem like much is there. But the reality is a completely different story. These two have been locked in a Cold War since 2021. They've never collaborated, and as far as we know, there has only been one FaceTime call between them. A call that essentially ended any chance of a relationship. Every time a peace deal has been put on the table, even when brokered by one of the industry's most respected figures, Jay Prince, it has fallen apart within months. Honestly, you don't get 3 full years of silence between two stars of this magnitude by accident. That silence is a deliberate choice, and we're about to dive into exactly why. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's set the stage, because the contrast between these two men is really the heart of the story. On one side, you have Drake, Aubrey Graham from Toronto. At 39 years old, he's signed to OVO Sound through Republic Records under the UMG umbrella. Every single one of his solo albums has debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. His 2025 single, What Did I Miss, peaked at #2 on the Hot 100, making it the most recent rap song to hit the top 10 as of right now. At this stage in his career, he isn't just an artist. He's the entire ecosystem. Then you have NBA YoungBoy, born Kentrell Deshaun Galden in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At just 26, he signed a massive deal with Motown Records, reportedly worth over $60 million, which kicked in for 2023 after he left Atlantic. He holds the record as the youngest artist to ever chart 100 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. His YouTube presence is staggering, with over 16 billion views and more than 85 million digital units moved in the US alone. Everything culminated on January 16, 2026, when the RIAA officially awarded him 126 certifications. That milestone moved him past Drake, Jay-Z, Kanye, and Eminem, cementing him as the most decorated rapper in history according to outlets like Rolling Stone and Hypebeast. Think about that for a moment. These two have never released a single track together, not a feature, not a remix, not even a leaked demo, nothing. The two biggest commercial powerhouses in rap over the last decade have a shared catalog that is completely empty. So, why does it stay that way? To truly understand the dynamic between Drake and YoungBoy, you first have to look at the relationship between Drake and Lil Durk, because that is where it all begins. Drake and Durk have a real history. Back in August 2020, they released Laugh Now Cry Later, which debuted at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the charts in Canada, and picked up Grammy nominations for Best Melodic Rap Performance and Best Rap Song. A year later, Drake featured Durk again on the Certified Lover Boy track In the Bible. This wasn't just a random collaboration, it was a visible alliance built on genuine friendship and loyalty. But here is where things get complicated. At the very same time Drake was cementing that bond with Durk, Durk was locked in an intense war with NBA YoungBoy. This wasn't just some minor social media back and forth. We're talking about real-world violence. It all traces back to 2019 when King Von, who was essentially Lil Durk's right hand, publicly called out NBA YoungBoy on Instagram Live. From that point on, the tension only intensified. On November 6, 2020, King Von was killed outside an Atlanta hookah lounge during a confrontation involving Quando Rondo, a rapper affiliated with YoungBoy, and an associate named Lil Tim, who was identified as the shooter. While the charges against Lil Tim were eventually dropped on the grounds of self-defense, that's not how it was viewed on the streets. By February 2022, things reached a breaking point when Durk released a track aimed at YoungBoy. YoungBoy immediately responded with, I Hate YoungBoy, a song where he didn't just target Durk, he went after India Royale, Gucci Mane, 21 Savage, Boosie, and even mocked the memory of King Von. That move turned the conflict into an all-out war. By August 2022, the violence continued when Quando Rondo was ambushed in Los Angeles. Lil Pab, Quando's cousin, lost his life in that attack, and federal prosecutors eventually linked a murder-for-hire plot back to Lil Durk and 5 OTF affiliates. Now, consider the position Drake was in. Your close friend Durk is locked in a literal war with YoungBoy, a conflict where lives are actually being lost. Who do you stand with? Drake made his decision a long time ago. However, things get interesting when you realize there was a brief window before Drake fully committed to one side where a collaboration was actually possible. In October 2021, NBA YoungBoy's brother, OG33, publicly claimed that a record between Drake and YoungBoy was in the works. Just imagine the impact a song like that would have had on the charts and streaming platforms. That collaboration never saw the light of day, and eventually YoungBoy himself explained why. On May 12, 2023, he released a mixtape titled Richest Op, which featured a track called Fuck the Industry PT. 2. On that song, he laid out exactly what went down during their private conversations. He rapped about a FaceTime call where Drake admitted he liked the music and respected the hustle, but ultimately couldn't work with him because of his loyalty to Durk. In response, YoungBoy labeled Drake his enemy, straight up, on the record, with no subliminals or metaphors. This account has been documented by HipHopDX, American songwriter, and even on the song's Wikipedia page. Think about that for a second. Drake told him directly on a call that he was choosing Durk's side. The moment those words were spoken, it stopped being about industry politics and became deeply personal. On that same mixtape, YoungBoy didn't stop at Drake. He took aim at J. Cole, Lil Yachty, and even J. Prince. He wasn't just picking a fight with one person. He was declaring war on the entire ecosystem that Drake represents. This is the moment you begin to understand YoungBoy's identity as an artist. He is someone who rarely does features. On his 2025 album I Got a Story, which is 30 tracks long, the only major guest appearances are Playboi Carti and Mellow Rax. And that's it. When Aiden Ross tried to get him on a stream following his massive concert, YoungBoy's team made it clear he wasn't interested in that world. YoungBoy isn't trying to get in. More importantly, he wants the entire industry to know he doesn't care to be included. What makes this even crazier is that shortly after Fuck the Industry PT, 2 went viral. J. Prince, the founder of Rap-A-Lot Records and one of the most influential and respected figures in hip-hop history, stepped in. He posted a photo from Utah where he was standing alongside NBA YoungBoy and Birdman. In that post, as reported by iHeart, he publicly called on YoungBoy to remove Drake from his enemy list. He rolls with me, therefore I think it's a good idea to take him off your enemy list. When you break that down, it's a massive statement. J. Prince doesn't usually do public mediation, so the fact that he felt the need to intervene tells you 2 things. Drake is protected at a level most rappers will never experience, and the tension with YoungBoy had become serious enough that it required outside intervention to keep things from boiling over. A FaceTime call between Drake and YoungBoy was reportedly arranged to settle their differences, and for a moment, it seemed like things were finally stable. However, peace in the rap world is often fragile. Just 5 months after J. Prince's Peace Summit in October 2023, Drake released For All the Dogs, which featured the track 8 AM in Charlotte. In that song, Drake included a line about young boys and the federal consequences of unpaid taxes. While some might argue it was just a general metaphor, rap fans quickly connected the dots. At that very time, NBA YoungBoy was facing significant legal pressure and probation issues regarding his tax compliance, a detail highlighted by Hot New Hip Hop upon the album's release. Fans weren't the only ones who noticed. YoungBoy himself caught the reference immediately. On that same day, October 6, 2023, he took to Instagram to post a heated, expletive-filled message directed at Drake, essentially dismissing the subliminal shot. Both Hot New Hip Hop and Hot 97 covered the retaliation as it unfolded. To understand where things stand now, let's recap the situation up to this point. Drake chose to side with Lil Durk, prompting YoungBoy to officially label Drake an enemy on wax. Even though J. Prince stepped in to mediate, Drake responded with a subliminal shot on 8 AM in Charlotte, which YoungBoy addressed on Instagram just hours later. Following that exchange, the situation went completely cold for 2 full years. This period of silence is particularly notable because both artists navigated the most significant chapters of their careers during that time. For Drake, 2024 was defined by his high-stakes feud with Kendrick Lamar. The fallout from Not Like Us became a massive cultural shift, leaving the industry divided over the impact on Drake's reputation and commercial standing. By January 2025, Drake escalated his issues with Universal Music Group by filing a defamation lawsuit over the track. However, a federal judge dismissed the case on October 9, 2025, leading Drake's legal team to file an appeal. The reply brief was submitted to the Second Circuit on April 17, 2026, just days before the release date for Iceman was announced. During this same window, YoungBoy remained in federal custody. In December 2024, YoungBoy was sentenced to 23 months on federal gun charges, but by March 2025, he had been moved to home confinement. The situation took a massive turn on May 28, 2025, when President Donald Trump granted him a full pardon. A major story reported by Billboard, Fox News, and the Utah News-Dispatch. After publicly expressing his gratitude to Trump, Alice Marie Johnson, and Brittany K. Barnett. YoungBoy channeled the experience into a new project titled Massa, short for Make America Slim Again. Released on July 25, 2025, the album debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200. The subsequent Massa tour kicked off in Dallas on September 1, spanning 42 shows and grossing $69.8 million, according to the tour's Wikipedia records. Then, on January 16, 2026, the RIAA officially named YoungBoy the most certified rapper in history, a milestone that saw him finally overtake Drake. Reflect on this entire timeline. While Drake is entangled in ongoing litigation, YoungBoy is effectively at the pinnacle of the industry. The power dynamic that existed in 2023 has undergone a total reversal. It's in this climate that Drake announced Iceman, and the rollout for this project has been incredibly unconventional. It started back in August 2024, when Drake began posting cryptic content on a burner Instagram account, frequently referencing Val Kilmer's Iceman character from Top Gun. Shortly after, he released the 100 Gigs EP. On July 4, 2025, he launched Iceman Episode 1, a live stream from Toronto featuring an Iceman-branded truck and warehouse. The following day, he dropped the single What Did I Miss, which eventually peaked at number 2 on the charts. By July 24, 2025, the rollout moved to Manchester for Iceman Episode 2, a cinematic live stream where Drake was seen being pursued through the city by a Pinocchio figure. That imagery was significant. As noted by the BBC's Sarush Khan, the Pinocchio character was widely interpreted as a symbol for the lies Drake believes were circulated about him during his high-profile feud with Kendrick Lamar. On September 4th, Iceman Episode 3 took place in Milan, where Drake released Doghouse featuring Yate and Julia Wolf, while also previewing Somebody Loves Me Part 2. Shortly after, on September 13th, a collaboration with Pressa titled National Treasure leaked online, prompting Drake to personally voice his frustrations regarding the situation to Adam Ross. By April 2026, the promotion for the project reached a new level of intensity. On April 12th, the Toronto Raptors' courtside seats were decked out with fake icicles. This was followed by a pyrotechnic stunt at Downsview Park on April 16th that was so disruptive the park management had to issue a formal apology. The momentum peaked on April 20th when a 25-foot ice sculpture was installed at 81 Bond Street in downtown Toronto. The installation drew massive crowds, with some fans showing up equipped with pickaxes, hammers, and blowtorches. The situation escalated to the point where Toronto Police and Fire Chief Jim Jessup had to intervene to ensure public safety. On April 21st, a Twitch streamer named Kishka managed to pull a sealed bag directly from the ice sculpture. He drove it straight to Drake's Toronto mansion, known as the Embassy, where he discovered a magazine inside revealing a release date of May 15, 2026. According to TMZ, Kishka was rewarded with a bag of cash totaling roughly $100,000, along with a custom t-shirt. The shirt featured the text, "2024 is my year," but with the 24 crossed out and replaced with 26. This has evolved into one of the most elaborate and theatrical album rollouts the rap world has seen in years. Yet, amidst the spectacle, fans are fixated on one specific question. Is there an NBA YoungBoy diss hidden on this album? Let's be real for a second. As of this recording, Iceman hasn't officially dropped. There is no confirmed track list available, and none of the major outlets, from Complex and XXL to Billboard and Rolling Stone, have reported any confirmed shots at YoungBoy on the singles released so far. Most of the speculation is currently centered on Kendrick Lamar, Pusha T, J. Cole, LeBron James, and $A$AP Rocky. On the April 22, 2026, episode of his podcast, Joe Budden predicted that Drake would likely target J. Cole and LeBron, a claim that was subsequently covered by Complex. So, where does YoungBoy fit into all of this? This is where the situation gets interesting. Fans aren't necessarily waiting for Drake to mention NBA YoungBoy by name. Instead, they are closely analyzing patterns, symbolism, and subliminal messages. Anyone who has followed this feud over the last 3 years knows that Drake rarely says a name directly. He operates through double entendres, references to young boys, tax-related jabs, and coded lyrics that require careful decoding. Furthermore, YoungBoy has shown that he doesn't wait for official confirmation to react. We saw this clearly with 8 a.m. in Charlotte. Drake dropped a single ambiguous line, and YoungBoy was on Instagram responding before the day was even over. Imagine the fallout when Iceman finally drops and contains another one of those YoungBoy's references, another jab about taxes, or even a subtle coded line buried in the lyrics. Do you honestly think YoungBoy is going to let it slide this time? This is the same artist currently sitting on 126 RIA plaques, whose latest tour grossed nearly $70 million. Most notably, this is the same YoungBoy who on October 15, 2025 brought Lil Tim, the man involved in King Von's death, onto the stage in Atlanta during a performance of I Hate YoungBoy. Consider the weight of that move for a moment, bringing Von's killer out in Atlanta of all places. Hip Hop Wire reported the incident, and the second Atlanta show was canceled immediately afterward. Following that, Chicago sources reported that the CPD canceled his United Center dates. citing safety concerns related to O-Block and OTF. Clearly, this is not a man who is backing down from anyone. However, there is a specific twist in this story that most people have completely overlooked. In October 2025, while YoungBoy was making headlines for bringing Lil Tim on stage, DJ Academics appeared on Adam Ross's Kickstream and shared a detail that went largely unnoticed. According to a hot new hip-hop report from October 21, 2025, Academics claimed that YoungBoy had personally reached out to him with a message he wanted to do a sit-down interview with Drake. Think about that for a moment. YoungBoy, freshly pardoned, still on probation, and coming off the most successful year of his life, was open to a conversation. That doesn't sound like someone looking for a fight. It sounds like someone open to reconciliation. Around that same time, on October 21st, 2025, Drake followed a Twitch streamer named Cuffham on Instagram. Cuffham had just finished live streaming YoungBoy's Massa show, and as noted by Sportskeeda, many saw this follow as Drake's subtle way of acknowledging YoungBoy's massive cultural influence. So, is the rivalry actually over, or is this all just a setup for something bigger? This is where the situation gets truly wild. You can interpret the last 6 months in one of two ways. Either both camps were quietly moving toward a resolution late last year, and Iceman is about to shatter that peace, or the tension never actually faded. It simply went underground and is now resurfacing with renewed force. From Drake's perspective, the strategy is clear. He is coming off a significant career loss to Kendrick Lamar and needs to re-establish his dominance. Nothing builds an album's narrative faster than an active rivalry. On the other hand, YoungBoy is currently at his peak. He has nothing left to prove, yet he is also someone who has never backed down from a confrontation. The question remains, which side will be the first to ignite the situation? Ultimately, this is about more than just Drake versus YoungBoy. It's about the lasting consequences of picking sides in the rap industry. It traces back to the night King Von died outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta in November 2020. 5 years later, that single event is still dictating industry alliances, influencing tour schedules, shaping album rollouts, and determining whether two of the world's biggest stars can even stand in the same room. That's the thing they don't tell you about the industry. When you align with someone, you inherit their enemies automatically. Drake aligned with Durk in 2020. Durk was already at war with YoungBoy, and the math has not changed. 5 years, 2 pardons, 1 Kendrick beef, 1 Motown deal, and 126 Rhea plaques later. That same math still does not change. J. Prince can step in. FaceTime calls can happen, Instagram follows can be quietly traded, and none of it actually dissolves the original alliance underneath. Durk is Drake's guy. YoungBoy is not, and until Durk and YoungBoy sit down in a real way, Drake cannot ever fully sit down with YoungBoy either. That right there is the real story. April 23rd of 2026. Iceman drops May 15th, which puts us 3 weeks out. Drake is about to release his most important solo album since the Kendrick fallout. His UMG lawsuit is currently on appeal, and his streaming numbers per hot new hip-hop zone coverage still dominate the charts with What Did I Miss, breaking his own Spotify records and all 10 of his albums charting simultaneously across 2025. The narrative around him has shifted though, because people are watching to see if he's still the same Drake they remember. Meanwhile, YoungBoy just released his massive documentary American YoungBoy in roughly 1,000 US theaters on April 22nd, 2026. Having debuted just days ago, it's clear he isn't going anywhere, and he has never been the type to ignore a provocation. The real question you have to ask yourself is this. When Iceman drops on May 15th, and there is a line, any line at all, that can be interpreted as a reference to YoungBoy, what happens next? Drake's camp will likely claim it's just a general flex or a total coincidence. That will be the narrative the morning the album drops. But the reality is that there are no accidents in a rollout this elaborate. You don't have a 25-foot ice sculpture guarded by the Toronto fire chief and then leave a stray bar on the album by mistake. Every lyric has been meticulously reviewed, every reference has been weighed, and every word has been placed with specific intent. If YoungBoy, his fans, or even academics hear his name in the subtext, this rivalry won't just reignite, it will explode. Here is the final thought I'll leave you with. NBA YoungBoy just became the most certified rapper in RIAA history, and he achieved it all from Baton Rouge. He did it without the industry's help, while under house arrest, and without a single feature from Drake or a cosign from J. Prince. He reached this milestone without ever stepping into the ecosystem that built Drake's career. Now, Drake is preparing to release Iceman, a project that feels cold, calculated, and reserved, at a time when the one artist he could never collaborate with has just surpassed his greatest career achievement. Do you really believe there won't be a shot fired? Do you honestly think 3 years of tension will end in silence? Watch May 15th closely. Keep an eye on the lyric sites in real time and monitor YoungBoy's Instagram within the first 6 hours of the album's release. If history has taught us anything about these two, that is exactly how long it takes for a response to surface. If you want to understand the fallout from the last time Drake and Kendrick went to war, and how that same blueprint might be exactly what he's using for Iceman, check out our next video.